We're in your reading book, and we're on page 258, Fanny Crosby. You can follow along with me, or you can just listen, whichever one you would like. Fanny Crosby's mother bundled her up in a thick quilt. She rocked her back and forth until Fanny's sore red eyes closed in sleep. Before long, the whinny of a horse came from the yard, and the doctor knocked on the door. Quickly, Mrs. Crosby led him to Fanny's cradle. Okay, a couple of things that just give me a time frame. First of all, the word quilt. Do you know what a quilt is? I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but a quilt is a blanket that is made from small pieces of fabric sewn together. And in this day, the mommies lots of times would have leftover clothes, like clothes that kids had outgrown or that mommy had never old, and they would take them and they wouldn't just throw them away or give them away because that was not done. They would take them and they would cut them into squares or sometimes into different shapes, and then they would sew it together. And lots of times these people didn't even have sewing machines. Today when you do quilting, you sew, but back in this day you didn't. You sewed only by, you sew by machine today. But back in this day, you only sew by hand. But the women, they had, that was the kind of their craft, okay? They didn't spend a lot of time drawing. They didn't have paper and pretty crayons and paints like Mrs. Harper does. They didn't, so they made quilts. Or they fixed holes in socks or that kind of thing. But a quilt was usually made by somebody. It wasn't a woven blanket all the way through. Those were harder to come by. So quilts were more popular, if you will. She rocked her back and forth until Fanny's sore red eyes closed in sleep. Okay, I know the little girl's name's Fanny. I know it's a girl. And I know, because she said she rocked her, I guess that's how I know it's a her, and she had something wrong with her eyes. Then a whinny of a horse. You know how a horse whinnies? Well, that's not very good, but you understand. Okay, the whinny of the horse. Okay, unless there was just a pet. My mind was thinking, is it just a pet? No, it was the doctor. The doctor had ridden a horse, and the doctor was coming to the house and knocking at the door. Now, your doctor doesn't do that, of course not. First of all, your doctor probably doesn't ride a horse, but he certainly doesn't even come to your house. But this doctor did because it happened a long time ago. All right, how old is your little girl? He asked. This is the doctor, and he listened to Fanny's heartbeat. Just 6 weeks old, Mrs. Crosby answered. Will she be all right? She's had a little bit of a cold, but now I'm worried about her eyes. They are red and swollen. I'll give you some medicine for her eyes, the doctor said. She should be well shortly. Mr. and Mrs. Crosby followed the doctor's directions closely, but Fanny's eyes didn't heal. The medicine only made them worse. At last they knew that Fanny could no longer see. As she grew up, Fanny's blindness did not stop her from climbing trees, riding horseback, and romping through the fields by her home. With her fingers, she could see everything, especially the face of her dear grandmother. Grandmother taught Fanny about the beautiful world God had created. Fanny learned the names of the songbirds from grandmother. When the birds perched on the trees to sing, Fanny listened and listened until she knew their songs by heart. Grandmother read the Bible to Fanny almost every day. Before long, Fanny had memorized whole books of the Bible. All right, let's just talk about that for a minute. The medicine the doctor gave Fanny was not the right medicine, and it hurt her eyes completely. I don't know exactly all of the story. I don't know if the doctor was just ignorant and didn't know about this bad medicine, but Fanny, when she grew up, said, somebody asked her, did you ever, as you grew up, since you're blind, just like Helen Keller was blind, when you grew up, did you feel Badness? Did you feel mad at the doctor? You know what her reply was? Never. Because when I open my eyes for the first time, I'm going to see Jesus. And so all of her life, she had that thought that she was never going to see. But her first view was going to be the heavenly gates, and Jesus was going to be there. And so she said, I'm not disappointed, and I'm certainly not mad at the doctor. And I always thought that was such a sweet testimony of Fanny Crosby. All right, we learned that she was very close to her grandma, and it was her grandma who taught her all kinds of things. Because if you can't see, you have to use your other body parts to help you. And so she could do things that probably Mrs. Harper better not do, like ride a horse. If you couldn't see, I better not get on top of a horse, or climb up in a tree. You know, that would be very hard. It would be, it's hard enough with your eyes open. But if you didn't have sight, or to run through fields, you use your eyes so much, you don't want to step on that thorn or that sticker or that stump or that rock, but she did, but she was able to do those things. And then of course she had really great hearing. And so listening to the birds with her grandmother, and her grandmother would say, oh, that's a robin. Don't you know a robin? Or that's a cardinal. Oh yes, listens to its song. Or that's a meadowlark. Or that's a whippoorwill. So Grandma knew the names of the birds, and she taught Granny that. And then, of course, she taught her about the Bible. And she taught her, and just Granny would read it over and over to her. Oh, read that part again. Until Fanny knew lots of Bible verses by memory. Fanny, Mother called early one morning. We're going to New York. Dr. Mott wants to look at your eyes. Maybe he'll be able to help you see. Even though she could not see, Fanny dressed herself. She put on her best dress and combed her hair. Before long, they were on their way. Fanny could hardly wait to reach New York. In New York, loud noises on the street scared Fanny, frightened her, but she walked bravely beside her mother. Dr. Mott carefully checked Fanny's eyes. Then he slowly shook his head. No, I'm afraid you will always be blind, Fanny, he said. Sadly, Mrs. Crosby took Fanny home, and nothing else could be done. Though she would never see, Fanny made up her mind to be happy. One day, after her 8th birthday, hey, that's like you, she made up a poem. Oh, what a happy soul I am, although I cannot see. I am resolved that in this world contented I will be. And many blessings I enjoy that other people don't. To weep and sigh because I'm blind, I cannot and I won't. So she went to see another doctor. They would think, well, maybe there was a way, maybe the doctor had a way to make Fanny see, but there was no hope. Page 262, Fanny continued to make up poems, and day by day she began to wish that she could go to school. Hey, wasn't that exactly what Annie Sullivan wanted to do? Yes, she wanted to go to school. Fanny's grandmother kept on reading to her. Fanny carefully stored all she heard in her memory. Oh, I wish I could go to school and learn like other children do, she said to herself. One night, after grandmother had prayed with her, Fanny sat thinking about school and her blindness. She knew God answered prayer, and so she knelt and she prayed, Dear Lord, please show me how I can learn like other children. Then she went to bed. A long time passed. One day, Fanny opened the gate to the front yard, and she heard a paper rustle. Mother? Fanny asked. Yes, Fanny, it's Mother. The mailman was just here, and he brought a letter for you from the New York Institute for the Blind. Would you like to go to school? School? Fanny cried. Oh, Mother, I want to go to school more than anything else in the whole world. All right. I hope that's how you feel about school, too. All right, go ahead and finish up the story. It's page 263, and I'll remind you in the assignments. And it's quite a little bit lengthy, so you want to give yourself some time. It ends up on page 269, but you'll enjoy hearing about how she spends her life serving the Lord Jesus. All right, enjoy it.